running medicine webinar. Every couple of weeks, we like to get together and bring our running community together to talk about just a weekly look inside our new world and what some of the things are we're dealing with and thinking about. I know many of you, but for those who I don't, I'm a sports medicine doctor at Hospital for Special Surgery, and among other things, love to run and get out and move. And so this has just been a great project. I hope to try and keep people educated and informed. And I think one of the best things about running is just the community of awesome people. And so I want to try and keep our community together as well. All right, so every couple of weeks, I like to put together what's kind of happened of note, just to keep people updated. So in the tri-state area, we thankfully are seeing a downward slope of both new cases and disease, which has been terrific. I think we've, at least from the initial wave, have been through the toughest part of this, and we are on the downhill part. Doesn't mean it's still not a dangerous situation, but it's certainly better than it has been before, and that's really a tribute to so many of the people who are watching this, who've done their part in helping us. Now, what we're heading towards, both in society and at our hospital, is a return to new normal. So, for example, I was telling our panelists before we jumped on tonight's webinar that today was the first day I saw patients in real life. And I was so happy to see real people. We were doing socially distanced visits. So I saw 2 patients an hour, and they were arranged in advance, and they were texted when they would come in. They were masked. We had separate rooms, and it was, you know, very socially isolated. And that's going to be the new normal in my office. And in every other business, we're going to be seeing new normals as people start to interface and we start to slowly get back to what we're doing. Now, running in Central Park has also become a new normal. And, you know, there have been people out moving around, and the weather's gotten better, and that's all terrific. But there's also been a lot of blowback on, and that's probably the appropriate term, against runners and masks and all the issues therein. And happy to talk about some of that during the Q&A. And I think one of the things that we've really seen is a change in the focus of the running community, from people running to complete races to people running for health. And I think it's been a real shift in how we've kind of gone about and seen this. And I think on the testing side, as we get better testing, we'll be able to ramp up, you know, different types of activities and think about what kind of things we can safely do, and happy to answer some questions about that. But I do think that running has become very important, and we'll kind of ask that during our first poll when we start our webinar. Now, the messaging on the medical side has also been, I think, interesting. And that has really included things such as how we're telling our patients to move. So this comes out of the Air Force, telling people that we want them to run to maintain health and readiness. We want them to exercise to reduce anxiety. We want them to think about exercise to improve their immune function. And those are some of the things we are thinking about for people to do. And this comes out of the National Park Service, talking about physical distancing in public parks and trails. I mean, we want you to get outside, which we definitely do. We want you to be smart about it. This past weekend, I did a big talk with the American College of Sports Medicine, and it was kind of a global discussion on exercise. And as part of that, I showed this slide, which is kind of the whole concept of keeping your immune function. And I saw the Roadrunners Club did a social media post the other day about not maxing out your effort for a long period of time. And I think this is important, that basically prolonged bouts of strenuous exercise can really negatively impact your immune function. And if I tell anybody who's a marathon runner that, you say, yeah, I know that. Every time I run a marathon, like a couple days afterwards, I get a cold, and that's basically reduced immune function. And that if you're doing, you know, more than an hour and a half at higher intensity running, you're certainly at risk for that. Now, that doesn't mean, for example, tonight we're going to meet Lindsay, who is a professional runner who came in like 12th at the Olympic marathon trials. For her, you know, her effort and my effort are two very different kinds of effort, because with her very little effort, she can run like faster than I'll ever run in my whole life. And so it's really a subjective thing as well, but I just think it's important to make sure you're not really maxing for long periods of time. And this study that I reference here looked at basically these things on the left here are the things which really modify and modulate your immune response. And after a marathon versus a intense walking bout, and you can see after a marathon, all these things on the left are ways we fight infection that go down. So what that means is that we will get back to marathon running as part of our lives, I promise. And we're going to talk to Christine tonight from Roadrunners Club about that. But in the short term, this is the time to make sure you're staying healthy. So this week's webinars, we have a few things. We have our running medicine webinar tonight. Saturday, we have our Saturday morning sweat workout. And then we have a wellness webinar next Thursday at 7. And all our events you can find in our calendar, and you can register for all our different webinars. And we love seeing people from all over the world. All right, so tonight's topic is the future of running. Where are we headed? And we're going to talk tonight with Christine Burke, who is a senior strategic partnerships at Runners Club. We're going to talk with Lindsay Flanagan, who is an elite level runner with ASICS. We're going to talk with Matt Futterman, who is a deputy sports editor of the New York Times, and he's author of Running to the Edge. And we're going to start by talking with Tim Mccormack, who is a high-level New York City police officer. I forget his exact title, he'll tell me, who's a marathoner who had a COVID infection, and we're going to talk about that as part of what we're going to talk about tonight. So with that, I want to welcome our panel. You can see them, you can't hear them yet, but they look awesome. And I'm going to begin tonight by asking a poll. So here's our poll, and I'm going to put this up as we like to do polls. We're going to launch this poll. I'm going to allow our panelists to vote in this poll as well. And we have basically just a couple questions in this poll, including number 1, I am running now more than I did before. Number 2, I am wearing a mask or facial covering when I run. And number 3, I am using a virtual platform. And so these are our 3 questions. And I want people to go ahead and answer these questions. And as you're answering your questions, there's lots of answers. Good job, everybody. Tonight, we're also going to be giving away a couple pair of shoes, which I always like doing fun giveaways to keep people, because, you know, life's tough right now. So let's do some fun things. And the way I'm going to do this is the following. In the question and answer box, you are going to see, I'm going to pull up the first person to answer my question correctly, and you're going to win. And then you're going to email me at the end of the webinar, and we're going to hook you up with ASICS, who's going to give you some free shoes. And so let's see the end results of this poll. First of all, I'm running more than I did before. I'm sorry, the first question, I need running now more than I did before. About 78% needed running now more than before. I'm wearing a mask or facial covering. About 54% are wearing a mask or facial covering, and I'm using a virtual run platform. And about 40% of you are, and the others are not. So I think that's all interesting information. All right, we're going to give away a free pair of shoes before we start here tonight. So here's the question. You must answer this question correctly. If you do not answer this question correctly, you cannot win the free pair of shoes. And I'm going for the first person to answer this correctly, so get ready. You're going to type it in the Q&A. So the question is, the first high school student to break the 4-minute mile was who, and in what year did he do it? That's your question. Let's see who's got the answer. Brendan, that's the right answer, but I need the year. So sorry, I need the year. I need the years. Virginia, sorry. Shirley, that's close. Henry, that's close. Carol, that's close. Jordan Metzl did not. No, that's not right. But Lindsay, Leonard Adler, Mazel Tov, Leonard Adler. Jim Ryan, 1964. Leonard, email me at the end, and we're going to get you a free pair of shoes, and we're going to do another trivia question at the end. That's how we're going to do it. Now we're going to start tonight's discussion with Tim. Tim, welcome, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right. Now, Tim, first of all, remind me of your rank at NYPD, because I totally blew it and I didn't want to fake it.
I'm Deputy Chief Tim Mccormack of the NYPD. I'm the Chief of Detectives in the Bronx.
All right. Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you so much for all the great work you do and keeping everybody safe. And we really appreciate it. Now, Tim, in addition to your job with NYPD, you're also a runner. So tell us about that.
I love running. I did it in my younger years when I was in high school, but I was a soccer player at heart. So I played my soccer sport up into the age of 50. And at 50, I decided that I need to do something that wasn't going to cause me as much physical injury. So I decided to take up running. So I turned 50 and I said, I'm going to run my first marathon, and I've been hooked since.
Well, I love to hear that. How many have you done?
I've done 4 marathons so far.
That's awesome. So the reason, aside from you're a great guy, the reason you're on tonight's webinar, and you were the first person I asked, is because I saw you for an injury, and as part of that discussion, you told me that you and a number of the police officers in your precinct, and your is it a station house? How do we classify that?
It is a station house, yes.
Okay, good. I want to make sure I say the right thing. And your station house had COVID, and you asked me the question, when can I get back to running? Right?
Yes.
And I thought that's a great question, and I wanted to try and give you the best information, obviously, But I will tell you, this is a new disease, and the diagnosis is also a new disease in how we're returning people to activity. So tell us a little bit about what were some of the symptoms you had and how you're feeling now.
So one of the first symptoms I caught on early was while out doing a run, just a 5 mile, I felt the burning sensation in my lungs, and I was winded like I've just run the marathon, at a 4-minute pace, and it just wasn't feeling right. And then right after that, it was headaches, no fever, but it just real headaches. And then I lost the sense of taste and smell. And it was about 3.5 weeks later that I started to get back the taste and the smell.
Mm-hmm. One thing we're learning with taking care of people and patients with this disease, particularly in my, with athletes, but just in general public with athletes, is, no two people are the same in terms of, not only how it affects them, but what advice we're giving them. And, we're actually right now putting together a medical review paper on the different body systems that can be affected by COVID and how we are going to give the return to activity advice, because, people can get orthopedic issues and cardiac heart issues, pulmonary issues, lungs, and it's different for every single person. So I think one of the best things you're doing is just really doing a good job of listening to your body and just kind of being thoughtful about how you ramp back up. And the other piece is that as somebody who's had a couple injuries, even your brain, you're like, I want to run. I can't wait to get back and do that. But if I let you go do that right away, you're going to be right back injured. And so building up your strength is important as well. So you're doing a good job with that.
Yes.
So we have you on.
One of my issues too, which I'm seeing with the illness, is I have many people that do work for me that are being diagnosed, getting the illness, coming back to work, and then having a relapse with the same illness again. And it's something that I figured, it's best to give time, let your body heal, let it get out, and then I'll be able to get back to running.
I think it's great advice. And I think it's really important just because, we're going to be seeing obviously a lot of people who, get this virus and get through it. But I think we're going to just keep learning about how to give the best advice. And so we're all thinking about you and really appreciating all the great work you do for us. And Tim, we really, really appreciate everything. Okay.
And thank you for your support and everybody from not only New York City, but around the country that support everything that's being done here. You're
awesome. All right. Now we're going to bring in Lindsay, because Lindsay is an elite level runner. Tim, if we took basically Lindsay could lap us no problem at all. She probably could lap us in the marathon. Now Lindsay I was chatting with Lindsay before, and Lindsay's last race before everything shut down was the women's Olympic marathon trials in Atlanta. Is that right?
Yes, it was. I think we were one of the last races that probably happened.
Yeah. And what do you remember about that race?
Man, it was pretty incredible. I think it was the biggest women's and men's field that we've ever had, and just running through the streets of Atlanta, it was deafening. Just the crowds were so loud. Where I was talking to some people afterwards, and they're like, I feel like I needed earplugs out there. And I was like, really? I thought it was awesome. So it was really cool, because I feel like sometimes you only get that, atmosphere at a major marathon, but to have that, in Atlanta out there it was really special.
That's great. I mean, it's, when we've talked with a couple of the elite level runners, just about what they're doing now. And that's, I guess, what I want to ask you, Lindsay, because I think, and we're going to talk with Christine about the importance of having goals. And I think particularly for a professional level runner, you're kind of thinking about, you're basing your whole life around your season and your upcoming races for marathoning, you're training year round for particular races. And so having that taken away for a while, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's been a strange time, but running, I feel really thankful that unlike the swimmers or people like that, we're actually still able to go out and run, safely. But it has been different. Generally, I feel like the summer is, you come off your spring marathon and then you start doing a lot of different sharpening work, because you're going to gear up for all of these shorter races throughout the summer, 5Ks, 10Ks, things like that. So instead of, I took my break after the marathon and then was going to get ready to start doing that kind of sharpening, like getting on the track more. But, you know, with everything that's happened, it's kind of been this shift of just going back to the basics, which sometimes those are the things that aren't as glamorous, but, you know, it's just the getting in the, you know, just longer runs or the more effort-based type training, the hills, the strides, where you're not, you know, getting out there and, you know, max efforts, because in reality, that's something you can't maintain for, well, we don't know when the next race will be. So it's been kind of going back to the simpler times of just those basic training elements.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, I think people don't appreciate, you know, in the cycle, how long you guys really take to build up and do that kind of stuff. So we certainly appreciate your input and enthusiasm and, you know, plotters like Tim and myself. We love that you're thinking about us and that you're kind of dealing with a lot of the same things and staying motivated. I guess that's my last question for you is, are you having problems? Like, I would say that I am somewhat, and I'm sure Tim as well. Motivation is motivation. I hear that a lot from my patients. I'm having trouble staying motivated without a goal. And we're going to talk to Christine about that in a second. Tell me about motivation for you. Is that something you deal with at all? Or you're just like, I'm going?
No, I mean, at first it definitely was, because, you know, I would plan one race only to see that it was canceled. And then all of a sudden you start to get pretty down, because this uncertainty kind of wears on you. But, you know, I love running, and I'm so grateful that I'm able to do it, that the motivation is still there, because I know that races are going to resume one day, and I still want to be, you know, the strongest and fittest I could be there. And, you know, I get motivation from my family. You know, my brother is a doctor, and he stopped running for 15 years, and he just recently started back up again, and he's loving it. And I'm like, you know, if he can go out there after working these 6 hours on, 6 hour off shift, I can go get my run in, and I'm going to be perfectly fine. So, you know, the motivation comes and goes.
I love that attitude. That's exactly right. That's terrific. And I love hearing that. All right, Linz, we'll be back with you, but thank you so much. And we're going to get some audience questions in. And by the way, our second pair of shoes we're giving away at the end of the webinar. So you got to listen to the whole thing. Sorry, suckers. That's how you're going to get the second pair of shoes. All right, now we're going to go to Matt. And for those of you who know Matt Futterman, Matt is the deputy sports editor at the New York Times. He wrote a great book recently called Running to the Edge. And he has, believe it or not, we all have fake backgrounds except for Tim. That's actually his office. I guess Lindsay too, but Christine and I have these fake backgrounds. Matt's background looks fake, but it's actually real. And that's pretty awesome in and of itself. Matt, sir, that's so cool. It looks like you're in the Netherlands. Where are you? Oop, we actually muted him. All right, sorry. Okay, go ahead. Now, where are you?
I'm on the Jersey Shore in Long Beach Island.
Oh, looks awesome, man. Looks awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty peaceful.
Good. So Matt, tell us. So one of the things that you know, we've talked about. Matt is one of my great running friends and running friends. You've written a lot about kind of the future of running, and we're going to talk to Christine about what New York Runners Club is doing to kind of evaluate the future. But you wrote a couple of things even in the past couple of weeks, one about the future of triathlon marathoning, and then the story around Ironman. So in your view, as somebody who covers this for work and has done a lot of work on this, you know, what's your view on kind of where we are with the future of running, which is the topic of tonight's webinar?
I think we're very up in the air. I mean, the good thing about running is that we can all do it whenever we want. It's not like playing a baseball game. So, you know, we can still do our activity. I'm a big believer in running with a group. That's sort of what the heart and soul of the book I just wrote that you mentioned, Running to the Edge. So it's pretty painful to have to run alone all the time these days. But I'm thinking that we won't have to do that forever, and that there are ways that you can still, you know, meet up with a buddy and run, you know, stay 6, 8, 10 feet apart, whatever you feel comfortable with. So, I mean, in a very sort of personal sense, like, you know what the future of running is? It's running. But, you know, in the sort of big communal part of it, which is, you know, that those moments where we feel like we're a part of something that is larger than ourselves, like standing on the starting line of the New York City Marathon in Staten Island surrounded by 50,000 other people. You know, those special moments, I hope they can come back as soon as possible. We don't know when those are going to be. You know, it's all depends on cures, vaccines, treatments, things like that. in the meantime, a lot of people are thinking, I think, really hard about what that might look like.
Yeah, I think those are all important points. And, I think that in many ways, I'm part of this whole group at the American College of Sports Medicine called Exercise is Medicine. And it's a whole initiative to try and get doctors to prescribe exercise around the world. And I think running as part of that prescription has been, people are viewing running as an important, this is a disease that we don't have a great treatment for. We don't have a great prevention strategy. So the best prevention is, keeping yourself healthy and socially distanced as best you can. And I think exercise, daily outdoor exercise for at least a half hour is a big piece of that preventive health. And I think that people are appreciating running in a very different way, I think is one thing I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing it more than I really ever have in my life. I mean, I'm doing like 75 miles a week these days, and I never thought I could do 75 miles a week. But frankly, there's nothing really else for me to do. I don't really like doing classes online and stuff like that. I like to get out and I like to move. And I can't swim anywhere. Do the occasional yoga class online. So I've been running an absurd amount, and I'm just like really thankful that my body's holding up. My body's actually responding really well to it. And it's sort of one of those moments where you don't know what you can do until you push yourself that I'm having. So you talk about silver linings, that's been one of them for me the last couple months.
Yeah, that's great. I feel the same. I've done a lot more mileage. I don't know exactly, but a lot more mileage. Are you doing some strength training as part of what you're doing?
Yeah, I do your lunges. Yes, I do your push-ups.
That's a good question. Good boy. All right, good. So if you're only running, you're gonna get hurt. You gotta build some strength.
I'm not doing a goddamn burpee though. Like, I'll do those with you in Central Park when I get to it, but I'm not doing burpees on my own.
All right, that could be fair. That's fine. I accept that. All right, well, now it's a pleasure to bring Christine Burke into the conversation. Christine, among the things she's doing at New York Road Runners Club, is helping oversee the virtual running program, which has been in place for a while, but I'm guessing it was something that was part of what you did before, and now it's taken a much more prominent role. Christine, welcome, first of all.
Thank you.
Second of all, tell us about kind of virtual running at the Road Runners Club.
Yeah, so you're right. So virtual running at New York Road Runners has been around for a while. We've done virtual training for about 8 years now. So we've trained people virtually for the marathon for quite a long time. And we launched virtual racing in partnership with Strava about 2.5 years ago. So in some ways, it's a lucky accident that we have this program off the ground for when a global pandemic hit, but it's given us the opportunity to figure out what do people like in doing races virtually, and finding different ways to engage with runners from around the world in a more competitive way than just going out for a run.
And I think you heard my comments at the beginning about trying to modify your intensity, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do some intensity. In fact, I think you should do some intensity. It just means that I don't want you doing long, intense workouts all the time. But I do think, Christine, it speaks to the piece that I asked Lindsay and Matt about motivation. And I think that I think having a goal as part of motivation is hugely important for people. So I think that I'm guessing having those kind of races available helps people stay motivated. Is that what you're finding as well?
Yeah, it's definitely what we're finding. So we had the popular Brooklyn Half was scheduled for this May 16th, so just in a few weeks now, and it's one of our most popular races of the year in person. 27,000 finishers, the largest half marathon in the U.S. And when we unfortunately had to cancel it because of the COVID crisis, we were able to convert it to a virtual race. And so we have given people a goal to still reach for. We have over 11,000 people registered for it and expect that number will grow in the coming weeks. But it will give runners a reason to get out of bed and to continue to train, and a reason to push themselves. I think you're right in that you shouldn't train at the same cadence and at the same pace every day. You need to mix it up and to push yourself to faster paces, and some days should be slower, but that sort of variety is going to keep you healthy and motivated.
And what are you finding in terms of what kind of feedback you're getting? Are people responding well to this kind of virtual world?
Yeah, people are responding really well. I think with, as Lindsay spoke to the uncertainty of when will races resume, knowing that there are virtual races that can keep people challenged has, I think, been a big motivator. And it's not just New York Roadrunners. There are lots of virtual races and challenges that are going on around the world. And it's a way for people to race, but still maintain distance from each other and to be safe.
And are these all on treadmills, or can people do them anywhere they want to do them, wherever you want to do it?
No. So the New York Roadrunners virtual races are not on treadmills, actually. You're tracked on Strava and you do them outdoors. And so it's a great way to explore different routes. The Brooklyn half course is a little hilly in the beginning and then flat at the end. And if you want to, you can find a fully flat course and not have to face those hills of Prospect Park. But it's a good way to find a half-mile route around your neighborhood. Maybe it's loops or a point-to-point, and get friends and family out there cheering for you.
Yeah, well, I would say that certainly runners around the world, and certainly runners in the tri-state area, so appreciate all the great work that the Roadrunners Club does for us year in and year out. And you really have you've taken such great care of us for so many years. So we really appreciate all the great work you've done, and that you're doing now and will do in the future. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. We love our runners, and we can't see them in person. We love seeing them virtually, but we can't wait to see everyone back in person in Central Park or on a starting line soon.
Awesome. All right, so at this point, I want to answer some questions. So please write in some questions for any of our panelists. Karen Foley says, thank you, Tim, for your service. Bravo, NYPD. Cindy asked, Matt, do you wear a mask when you run? And I think that's a fair question and a good question, and we'll talk about it, Matt. Cindy wants to know if you wear a mask.
So I don't wear a mask, largely because I'm not going to get yelled at. There's not a lot of people around where I am right now. So I haven't been wearing a mask, and I haven't really seen a lot of people wearing masks. I was in Central Park back in New York a week or two ago and went early in the morning. This was right after the mask edict came down. And I would say that most of the runners were not wearing masks. It was a weekday morning. It was pretty empty. So it was sort of before any kind of backlash would have happened. But I mean, I'll defer to the medical experts on whether I'm endangering the public or whether I'm putting my own safety at risk by not doing that. I mean, what do you think, Jordan?
So I think it's interesting. I mean, I think this whole kind of mask discussion, certainly mask in public makes a lot of sense. Walking around, you don't know where you're going to go, what you're going to go into. And we do know that spread of COVID happens through a number of ways, including touching and respiratory droplets and breathing. And so if you're in an indoor space where somebody's breathing on you, that's certainly a risky situation. And the idea of minding, taking care of your fellow human, if you're going to be anywhere in close proximity or in an indoor space, makes a lot of sense for masks. I think in order to enforce that behavior, getting everybody to wear masks outside makes a lot of sense. Now, the question about running and running with a mask is, I think, a little trickier because in looking at the medical literature, I can't find a lot of evidence thus far that there has been really documented spread of disease with running. That being said, I understand people say, listen, I'm out here walking and I got a mask on. Why are you more special than me? You're running, you don't have a mask. So here's my best compromise, is what I would say. I think if you're in an area where there are other people and you can't physically distance yourself, and I think Central Park may be one of those areas, not at later or earlier in the day, I think having some kind of facial covering is, I think, respectful, and I think probably the right thing to do because of the emotional situation we're in, as well as much as anything. That being said, I think probably the best modification I would say is what I called last time the baklava, and someone said, yeah, that's a dessert, but it's kind of like a baklava. What are they? Or then they said it's a muff.
A buff.
Yeah, buff. What's the right name of that thing? Is that not a baklava?
We call it a buff.
Okay, fine. What's it called, Matt?
Well, we all call them buffs, and I was wearing one of those around my neck just in case I was going to get in trouble. I did have a go-to when I was in New York, so that was around my neck.
Yeah, BYOB is what I'd say. BYOB.
Yeah.
And I think just yank it up, and I think that's the best. I think. Christine, you agree?
I do agree. Yeah, I think it's really easy to wear this around your neck. And if you see another runner or pedestrian coming close to you, it's easy to pull it up and just be respectful. And it's a way to, without saying anything, say, I respect you and I see you and I care about your safety.
I think that's right. At some point, because I do think that there was that Belgian model that came out looking at the cloud behind the runners and the bikers, and everyone's like, oh my God, I hate runners and bikers. And that was a model. That wasn't a study. So I'm not saying, I think it's fine. I think the buff, AKA baklava, is probably the way to go with that. I think that's probably the safest way to go. Lindsay, question for you on getting amped up for a virtual race. Have you tried virtual racing, Lindsay? And can you get excited about it?
I have not done a virtual race yet, but I do some online coaching. I have a lot of athletes that are doing virtual races. I had someone last week go out and do a solo half marathon. And, I have people asking me all the time, like, can you help me find one? And I have been helping them, because it's great that a lot of these races are giving people, a 2-week window or a 3-week window to finish the race, so they can do it anytime they have time, whenever they're feeling most motivated, actually. So I've actually asked my athletes, when do you feel like you're going to need this? Whether it's after like a stressful week, do you need this like emotionally? When should we fit this in? So I think, it's great because like Christine said, it is good to have variety and it is good to mix it up. So having something just exciting that on the calendar that you can say, okay, I'm going to go out and run this today. I think it is getting people pretty motivated, and I love the idea of it. So I don't know when I'll be racing again, but virtual racing might be in my future. I'm not sure yet.
Cool. Now, Tim, you're waiting to run again, which is you love to run, and we've had you on the slow back to activity plan. I think your cardiovascular, your heart and your lungs are good to go. I was worried you weren't strong enough. We had you working on some muscle strengthening. When is your first run scheduled for?
For Monday.
Tell us what you're going to do. Where are you going to go, and give us the story on that.
I have a very good little 5-mile loop that I do where I live. It has a lot of hills and it has a lot of downhill. So I'm going to get the best of both worlds.
Good.
Very little flat.
Good. I love to hear it. Stacy Skoll says balaclava or something. Balcalava. I mean, there's some word like that. That's like the same thing. Yeah, I think muff's easier. I'm going with muff from now on. I think that's fine. And George says, not a question, but just a comment. I'm totally with Matt on the burpees, so that's good. Matt, happy to see that. Brendan Riley asked, Christine, what's the story with the future of virtual racing? What's the game plan going forward with this stuff? Are we just going to have more and more of these as we fill in? What's the game plan? They want to know.
So for New York Roadrunners, we have a schedule of 10 virtual races throughout the course of the year. So this calendar year, the races are already planned. Not all of them are announced or open for registration yet, but we have the year scheduled. And it will include a virtual TCS New York City Marathon, which we've done 2 years in a row already. And it's been incredibly popular, with literally thousands of people around the world running a virtual marathon the same weekend as the in-person TCS New York City Marathon.
And Christine Albert Gallatin says, is New York Roadrunners Club selling those awesome buffs?
So we have traditionally given them away. This was given away last year at Global Running Day, which is the first Wednesday in June. And we intend to give away more of these. Our New York Roadrunner Run Center isn't open right now, so we don't have the ability to do that. But I think you can expect that there will be a distribution of buffs in your future.
Awesome. And Betty Clark says, Christine, I'm grateful for the buffs the NYR has given me over the years. I use them for every run. So
thanks, Betty.
That's great to hear. I'm looking for some more. Thanks for these great questions, guys. Here's Ana Ferreira. She is a sports medicine doctor from Brazil. We're waiting for running races to return. When do you anticipate that might happen? So Anna, Matt has written a great article about that in the New York Times. Matt, what was your summary about that? With you kind of raised some interesting. How did you leave that article feeling about the future of running?
I mean, I felt like there are going to be some races in some places this summer. There are areas where right now the disease is not, that virulent. I'm not sure if that's the right word. And I feel like some places are going to be able to hold races, but I think those races are going to look different. You know, the timing happens with a chip that's generally in your bib. So there are, you know, there's one idea that's really interesting that I think is happening, which is instead of the race starting at 9 o'clock in the morning and everybody masses on the starting line, the race happens between 9 and 1 or 9 and 3. And either you get an assigned start time or you just show up when you want to show up and you run the race. And that way you avoid like that real choke point, which is probably the most problematic place. And I'm talking about, you know, smaller races. I'm not talking about the New York City Marathon with 50,000 people that somehow have to get to Staten Island and wait around for a couple hours and getting corrals and things like that. But, you know, we're talking about, you know, local races, and hopefully those will probably be the ones to come back first because they're more doable. So there are ideas like that people are batting around that I think are truly possible and might get racing back and give people, you know, that little bit of, like I said before, being a part of something larger than themselves, which I think is why we all race. Those of us who are not Lindsay Flanagan and, you know, are not racing to try and make Olympic teams. And by the way, that trials race she ran, it was freezing and winding, and that course was so hard. So like 12th place in that race, I mean, incredible.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was a tough course, but yeah, it was exciting.
It was brutal. It was absolutely brutal, and a cold, windy day. Like,
yeah, I did have face burn for about a week from the wind, so I'll
sure.
give very windy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so listen, everybody. First of all, I want to say thank you for your great questions. It's so nice to see friends. You know, I know we do like different family Zooms, but it's so nice to see running friends. And so we'll meet back in a couple weeks for this running medicine webinar. And before we sign off and give away our pair of shoes, I just want to say Lindsay Flanagan, Christine Burke, Tim Mccormack, and Matt Futterman, thank you so much for taking a little time and chatting with us and everybody watching. We had a really great crew and we really appreciate it. Let's give away the last pair of shoes. All right, so same deal, guys. You have to answer correctly in your Q&A and then email me at the end, and I will put you in touch with the great folks at ASICS who sponsored this and who are going to send you a pair of shoes, which is a great deal. All right, so I put this question in honor of Christine, and I need both answers correct. And if you don't give me both correct answers, I'm sorry, you can't win. The only person that cannot win this is the person that won the last one. I know who you are. All right. How many people finished the New York City Marathon in 2019? And don't type your answer yet because you're not going to get a second chance. How many people finished the first marathon, and what year was it? New York City Marathon. So how many people did it in 2019? How many people finished the first marathon, and what year was that?
I should probably cover my shirt.
Don't worry about it. Oh my God, we got a ringer who darn close got the answer, but his name's Mike Schnall, and he works for Runners Club, so he cannot do that, but that's fine. Michael, very close here, and Mike, you were right, but sorry, I can't. Allison Hauser, close, but that's not going to be Ned Norton. No, Ned, come on, get on Google, dude. Let's go. We have no Googlers here. All right, Abria Ann Jones is the only person here who's like has heard of Google. That's the right answer. You shouldn't know this. You should just Google it. Abria Ann Jones comes in with 53,627 in 2019, 127 in 1970. Abria Ann Jones, congratulations. You are our second winner. Great job. Good use of technology. Mike Schnall also had the right answer, but he is in fact a paid informant. He cannot win. So as Matt Futterman fades into the sunset there, you can barely see Matt's outline. It means it's time to go. I look forward to seeing everybody Saturday morning for our workout, and then again Thursday for our wellness. Everybody hands up right here. All right. Great to see everybody. Thanks for joining. I'll see you soon. Email me winners. All right. Bye-bye.